also, the thing is, people have to have that conscious decision. You know what? When I'm doing this to this instrument, am I putting it in the best situation to set up for success, or am I setting it for failure? And I think a lot of times people will lack confidence in themselves, and they're actually attributing instruments to danger by handling it more than it needs to be handled, and therefore increasing the likelihood that something could happen, which would lead to an error.
What if one conversation could save a life? What if one new process or new product could save a patient from surgical harm? Broadcasting from a hospital basement near you, you're listening to the Beyond Clean Canada podcast, the voice of medical device reprocessing from C to C to C. Each week, we spotlight the people, processes, and products from around the country and the world that are disrupting our profession and helping you fight dirty. Every instrument, every time. Join us as we have the kinds of conversations that matter and give our industry the kind of voice that it deserves. And now, it's time to go True North strong and beyond clean.
Hey, all you Canadian clean freaks out there. Welcome to Season 1 of the Beyond Clean Canada podcast. Hosts Stacey Galen and Barry Pickering would like to thank our sponsor, Solventum Canada, for making this dream become a reality.
Today we have a very special guest, Brandon Rawn from Stryker, and he's going to dabble in and talk to us a bit about the cost of an error when it comes to the MDRA. So buckle up, let's go.
From the studios of Healthcare HQ, you're listening to Beyond Clean Canada, the voice of sterile processing from C to C to C.
Okay, Beyond Clean, we are here with our guest, Brandon Rawn from Stryker, and he's going to talk about his passion when it comes to errors. So, Brandon, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So first off, thanks for having me on. This is probably the first podcast I've ever done. My mother always told me that I had a face for a radio. So this is a long time coming. So just to get right into it, as mentioned, I work for Stryker. I've been working for about 3 years now. I work for the instruments division, looking after medical device processing, ProCare, which is service, and surgical technologies. But before then, I worked in the public sector for a tri-site hospital for 7 years. And prior to that, I worked 10 years in pharmaceutical manufacturing, where that taught me a lot of the fundamentals that kind of went into everything that I conduct with my presentations.
Awesome. That's amazing. And I've actually had the pleasure of hearing you a few times. And let me tell you, you put on a great presentation. You keep the crowd engaged and you're very knowledgeable. So we're going to jump right into our first question then. Your mission and focus are to make healthcare better. You've spoken on 4 values. Can you give a brief description of those 4 values and what they stand for?
So these values are actually driven from Stryker themselves. I want to start saying I think every organization has certain values that they kind of bring out to their members. And the one thing that I didn't believe in a lot of values that my previous employers had. I feel like a lot of people didn't talk the talk or walk the walk. When it comes to Stryker, I really do feel like they are embedded in everything we do. For example, together with our customers, we've driven to make healthcare better. I personally treat everybody as if you don't buy Stryker products. For me, I just want the best what's for your patient, best for your staff, and through that is through partnership. And I believe that if you're long-term, if you're going to do business with somebody, you need to like them and you need to have a lot of respect and have something that transcends capital transactions. And I think that there are companies out there that do this really well. And I'm hoping that we are one of those companies that we continue to partner. So like the first one is just integrity and doing what's right. I am the first to put up my hand when I see that something is wrong or if something needs to be rectified. I also always believe that just because you have a problem, if Stryker doesn't have a solution, it doesn't matter. I'm still going to help you find a solution because I believe in that partnership. And when it comes to accountability, I think it's in some way, shape, or form, we all like to think we're accountable. I care about what people think of me. And by then, when I make a promise, I make sure that I follow through on that promise because I treat myself as an asset. And I want to make sure that regardless of who I'm representing, I represent myself. So to that, accountability is really important. When it comes to grow people, this is something that I've been trying to embed in a lot of interactions with I have people come from conventions or conferences, or when I come visit people's site. And the reason why is because the culture in the public healthcare setting has been deteriorating over time. And there's a lot of factors to that, which we can get into a later date. But I think that Stryker has a very strong culture. It's something that, I'm the one mixing the Kool-Aid now. That's how much I enjoy working here. And whatever I can do to bring that culture to an organization and pair some of those relationships between the OR and MDRD, I think that's going to really reap its rewards when it comes to quality. And then last is just performance. We deliver. Is I just think that I stand behind my words and I stand behind our products. And it's sometimes if we have something that is not going to rectify the issue that you have, like I said, we're going to help you find that, or we're going to figure out why it's not working. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Brandon, yeah, that's great to hear your commitment and Stryker's dedication to healthcare and trying to make it a better place for...
We need people like you, Brandon.
100%. Yeah, and like you said, walking the walk, and you can tell that the passion runs deep. The force is in you for sure, right? So it's great to hear that. And
it's like Brandon walks through the door and they're like, "Oh, Brandon's here today." Not like, "Oh God, Brandon's here today."
There's some people that may disagree, but I'm glad at least you have a good impression.
Yes. Southwestern Ontario is good. Okay, we're good.
Now, Brandon, this leads us to our next question: understanding the risks that contribute to the cost of an error. Can you elaborate on that?
So, I'm going to try and make this not as long-winded as it needs to be, but I think sometimes people think medical device reprocessing, right? You always hear glorified dishwashers. They think it's so simple, but no, it's a very complex thing. And getting a bunch of individuals to buy into the purpose and the end goal is very challenging. So the one thing that I just want to talk about is whenever you're performing a task, everyone needs to understand the end goal. In most cases, is to have a sterile functioning medical device for patient use. The next objective is to kind of understand how we achieve this without deviating from that goal. When thinking about touch points of a medical device lifespan through its whole entirety of the process from start to finish, you have to assess each touch point to see if it's going to increase or decrease the likelihood of reaching that end goal. So if we're going to touch something more than what was necessary, maybe we might break an instrument, or we have to clean it because we've got to remove the soil. So every time we touch it, we just want to get it closer to that end result that we're trying to achieve. So just for example, it's like you're in decontamination and you're inspecting a set. The set has 40 instruments and you find 5 through visual inspection that need to be cleaned. You clean it. Well, in most cases, you just want to put that right into the automated washer and let it do a job. But what I'm finding is that there's a lot of individuals who are lacking confidence because of various reasons. And what they start doing is they grab that set and they put it into the ultrasonic because they think, hey, you know what, a 200% cleaning. If I missed anything, it's going to get it. But you're actually introducing those instruments into a worse scenario. And sometimes what I've led through my investigations in my own hospital is that we were having bone in sets. And what happens is that, this water's not emptied on a regular, frequently. And when that tray raises out of the water, that sediment sinks and stays inside the set. A lot of people aren't taking the instruments out and inverting that set, and therefore it embeds itself in a lot of welds in those trays. So the thing is, people have to have that conscious decision. When I'm doing this to this instrument, am I putting it in the best situation to set up for success, or am I setting it for failure? And I think a lot of times people will lack confidence in themselves, and they're actually attributing the instrument to danger by handling it more than it needs to be handled, and therefore increasing the likelihood that something could happen which would lead to an error.
Right. So is there a way for technicians to understand and identify why an error may occur, maybe how to avoid and prevent that error? Because you categorize it into 5 top areas, I guess you'd say. So you do environmental, process, material, equipment, and people like the technicians themselves.
Yeah. So the challenge I always had was my storytelling. I felt like I've done some tests. If you guys ever did Myers-Briggs or any of those things where it says like your personality traits, right? So I'm a very analytical mind. So sometimes in my mind, like these things make sense. And I've always struggled at conveying those thoughts into words that get people who don't think like me on board. And so what I suggest is that every organization should expose their team to the fundamentals of contributing factors and root cause analysis to some extent. Without having a conversations, they won't be aware of what would lead to errors. A lot of people like maybe not think about lights or sound or these types of things. Next, I would find a way to combat complacency. One of the main reasons why I developed this presentation was after some self-reflection of being in my Stryker role, I just realized how complacent I was, and I just accepted my environment as this is what it is, and there's no one going to change it. Our surroundings become white noise, we autopilot our day-to-day responsibilities, and we normalize bad practices. Constant reminders of negativity and positivity outcomes remind people of like, why do we do what we do? I also encourage leaders to like pump the brake on repercussions when like assessing errors when they do occur. When every error results in repercussions, individuals may not share insight to the contributing factors. When people are honest, we can implement thoughtful corrective actions, and then we can review them with each other. When individuals understand the why, they are a little bit more aware of their surroundings and therefore report things more often that we can resolve and improve. So the thing about it is normalizing conversations and getting people adequate training. And it could be just attending a conference and speaking. Like I've been requested to go on site to sites and speak to the staff. And I think it's through awareness and through transparency on how people who are investigating issues, how they got to that objective. Sometimes we just put, hey, this is new training, read it and kind of go on. We don't tell people how we got to that point. I think a lot of leaders
on the lunchroom table and tell everybody to read it.
Yeah, and it becomes like a NASCAR board. And then what happens is someone's off that week, and then it's off the board, and then they weren't educated correctly. So the long story short is that we have to explain the whys to the individuals, and we need to kind of show them how we got there. And by then, we'll get everyone's creative juices flowing, and they'll be able to identify things when you're not around.
Right. Thank you. That's an amazing explanation.
And Brandon, I've been a frontline MDR technician for 20 years, and whether, it was my first year or whether it was last week, getting called into the office to discuss one of my errors, it's like a gut punch. Obviously I do my best to keep the errors to a minimum, but I am human. And like I said, a couple of times a year, I do get called into the office to discuss one. And it has an impact on the technician as well, like emotional. And I just, can you give a little dive into the mental health portion of these said categories of the MDR sterile processing technician? It gets the brunt of most of the blame when it comes to an error during surgery involving equipment. I know it's sometimes, we hear that in our, lunchroom talks. Oh, it's always MDR's fault kind of thing or whatever, right? It's a thing too, like Stacey and I talked, you do have to own that error for sure, and if it's applicable, sometimes it's not, you know what I mean? And I like to take something positive out of the error for sure. So basically that I never committed again, you know what I mean? So can you elaborate a little bit more on the mental health side of errors?
Yeah. So the thing about it is everyone knows the last couple of years, like there's been a big focus on mental health, especially after COVID. It's one of the contributing factors of why I left and found something. I had my second child on the way, a lot of commuting, and it's just like, COVID wore a number like on a lot of us. So the first and foremost is that many organizations just lack gratitude outright. I will be most accountable. One of the pillars we discussed is that like I was part of this problem. Like my whole thing is like, why should I give gratitude for someone for doing their job? The truth is like we all want to be respected and appreciated for what we do. If the only time that you're talking to somebody is to convey negative messaging, they will have more of a negative outlook on the day to day. Just think about it. Like you worked hard all day and then you go to a team huddle and then the whole team gets berated because like the OR had a tear down for whatever reason. And it just sets the tone for the entire day.
That can be pretty deflating for sure for the team. Yeah.
Yep. And so it's like all you hear is enough negative, like when the negativity, people stop listening. And even when the important information is being conveyed, people have already checked out. And then especially who that person is, they start to lose respect. And then once you lose someone's respect, I always say it's part of this presentation where it's trust is gained in droplets, but lost in buckets. And especially if you're a leader commanding these individuals, if you don't know how to maintain your stress, it can be really damaging. So like a disengaged employee may not affect it affects your culture. It kills everyone's mood around them. They lose empathy for the patient care, and they lose sight of the circle of care and why they're so important for it. And they have to be reminded. Most importantly, this may roll into their personal life. And I refer to this as perpetual happiness. You know what? I'd be transparent. I'm living perpetual happiness right now. And when your life is good, it spills into your work and it affects your work. And then the same thing. If your work's great, it goes into your personal life. And when it comes to taking care of your mental health, you have to do it for your job. You do it for yourself. You do it for your friends, and you do it for your family. And by doing things right and understanding consequences for our actions, we can collectively reduce negative occurrences and the severity of those occurrences. Thus, this will reduce our workload going through the medical device processing department, the amount of negative conversations that take place, and then which in turn will improve our mental health.
Love that concept. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So, Brandon, we just want to thank you so much for joining us on season 1 of Beyond Clean Canada, and we hope to have you again as a guest in the future.
All right, I appreciate everyone's time, and for anyone who stayed to the end, I'll give you a high five if I ever meet.
If anyone needs to get in contact with you, what's the best way for them to be able to reach you?
So the best would just be brandon.rawn@stryker.com. A lot of reps don't know who I am. So if you ask them, they'll be like, who? Or you can find me on LinkedIn and I'll loop you in with my Stryker credentials.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Brandon. Okay, so that was Brandon Rawn. You know something about Brandon, I always absolutely, completely enjoy when I am able to see Brandon speak. He's just so knowledgeable on the cost of an error. And it's not always just the money signs as well. He dabbles into the mental health portion of it too. So I am so happy that he joined.
Totally. And, another good episode, another great guest, Brandon. I like his unique perspective on positive living and his with positive work culture as well.
Yeah, he would probably talk to us until tomorrow if we let him.
And you can tell he does live that, so you get that vibe right off of him. So that's awesome.
For sure. So thank you again, all our clean freaks, for channeling in and listening. And remember, keep fighting dirty.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Beyond Clean Canada, your source for MDR content, education, and inspiration. If you enjoyed this conversation, we'd love to hear from you on the BCCA LinkedIn or Facebook page, or anywhere podcasts are heard. Make sure to give us a 5-star rating on your favorite app. And until we talk again, keep fighting dirty.